Hello and welcome to episode, Christ knows what, 3. Is it 3?
3? Might be
3?
4.
First. No, that was 0, 1, Ben. Last we're 4. I'll start again.
We are disorganised.
Yeah, we really are. Okay. Hello and welcome to Almost in Focus, episode 4, we're pretty sure. I'm Toby and my co-host here is Tom.
I'm Tom.
Yeah, there we go. We totally talked over each other again.
We're doing well.
Yeah, we're recording at a different time, everybody, and it's clearly messed us up. Anyway, what have you been up to this week, Tom? Because I know there's a story.
Yes, there is a story. I decided to be clumsy. I was getting ready for work the other day. So this was last Tuesday, so just over a week ago, and I fell over, put simply, and I've cracked my arm or my wrist on a radiator as I fell down, being particularly clumsy this one morning. And I've broken a bone in my hand. So this has been a real learning curve for me. I've never broken a bone before. And I've been having to learn to adapt to doing things one-handed. So it means most cameras are unusable for me because I tend to use manual focus lenses and I can't focus. So I have one digital I can use, it's my Fuji, and I can use for film cameras. I've got my Alfie Titch, which is probably the best camera for me at the moment because it's small and basically completely auto and fixed focus. I've got my Pentax 17 as well, which is zone focusing, so it's a little bit more fiddly for one hand, but it's doable. But yeah, I haven't done anything photographic at all because I've just not been able to. I can't get in the dark room. I can't butter toast without throwing bread across the room. It's a bit pathetic, really, and I'm feeling sorry for myself, but there we go. What about you?
I helped remotely with buttering toast in our last phone call in the car, to be fair. I do believe the phone was being used as a prop against your plate or something.
Yes, it did, yeah.
Yes, that's a good friend will always talk to you on the phone while being used as a prop.
Toast prop.
A toast prop. I'm putting that on my CV. Teacher, photographer, toast prop. My week was less dramatic, I suppose. Thought I was going to have the sort of photographic edge on you this week, but I think being taken out photographically wins. So I've been working on a long-term project, which we've alluded to a couple of times in our previous episodes. This episode might be a little bit... it's the right time to share this project and to discuss it.
I think so.
Without being too much, look at me! I mean, the project is quite look at me, to be honest with you. But I'll explain. So this week, I've been... Well, not this week, early last week, I was out photographing people with stomas and recording their stories. So for those of you that don't know and haven't looked at my work or checked my Instagram out, shame on you. How dare you listen to our podcasts and not follow us on social medias? Anyway, my quick story. Got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis at 18. Tom valiantly spent many a day sat in the Royal Gwent Hospital with me when I was first diagnosed, playing cards and getting nurses and being, I do believe, sprayed with a blood transfusion once or twice.
No, you missed. I was on the phone to your now wife at the time.
I did manage to hit the nurse, though. Not physically hit a nurse. I sprayed blood all over the nurse's uniform and I think face. Anyway, long story short, years of medication and trials and tribulations eventually had to cave in after getting seriously ill. And those of you that will have, go and have a look at the work, judge it, see what you think. Got seriously ill to the point of realistically no return, was given it's this or shuffle off this mortal coil. So away I went and had surgery in February this year and had my stoma fitted. This led me to do one or two things. I could have been miserable and, oh, woe is me. Instead, I picked my camera up and documented the entire process, which included the first time I ever saw my stoma was through my camera, which the doctors and nurses thought was weird. But
that's very you, though.
Well, it was a way of distancing myself from something that was happening to me.
So, I mean, with that in mind, obviously, I've spoken with you a lot through this whole thing. I mean, we met about the same time that you were diagnosed.
Oh, God, yeah.
And so we've been through this journey, witnessing what you're doing and what you've been through all the way. So I know what the stoma is. I know, the emotive journey that you went through to get to that point. Assuming that most people will probably know the term stoma and what that means. But for those who don't, without being too graphic, what was it you had done?
So, without being too graphic, a stoma is a opening in your belly where a piece of your intestine, now it can be your small intestine like mine because I have a ileostomy specifically, or it can be part of your large intestine, which is a colostomy. Uh, there is another type of stoma that I'm not so up on because it involves bladders and things, and that's not my area. So sorry, I don't know enough about those ones, so I won't talk about them. But yeah, ileostomy, which is what I have, comes out on my right hand side, sort of belly button adjacent, and it's where all my waste comes out now. And instead of going through my colon and out through my bum, it goes into a little-ish plastic bag that sticks to my belly, which sounds like I've got a Tesco bag strapped down there. It's not quite that
No, it's
basic.
little.
It's little, yeah. I am Waitrose all the way. If I bear in mind that the NHS provides my bags, so I go for some classy bag. No, they're basic, but they do the job. So they adhere to the body with a sort of a basic kind of glue, bit like, I suspect it's something similar to super glue because you have to use an adhesive remover to get it off. But yeah, it's a way of bypassing the damaged part of my body, potentially forever. At the moment, we're experimenting, or the surgeons are experimenting with the possibility of something called a J pouch, which is an internal version. But that's the ongoing project, has the ongoing medical side of it. As the doctors do things to me, I document it and build on it. But rather than just photographing and documenting me, because that was the initial part of the project, which is kind of currently on hold because there's not a lot to show. See my website, have a nosy. This is shameless self-publicity, I don't care. There is now the second part, which is what I was doing this week, which was This Bag Saved My Life, which is the working title. I think it might change, we don't know, of this project where I'm interviewing. So I'm moving into video, which I've never really explored before as a documentary photographer. I've never really gone down that road, but I'm now including it. So portraits and environmental portraits and some close-up stills, traditional picture story stuff, thinking David Hearn style images alongside a interview. I've now edited my first one down to about 20 minutes with segments on different questions that I've asked the people involved in the project, and that's ongoing now. Currently got about 10 people lined up with their stories, and it's interesting to hear how everyone responds to having this done to them. Those who have had chronic illnesses like me tend to view the bag as liberating and freeing, which is how I view it. Those who have had it forcing them through something like cancer or a more sudden change where they were healthy and then not, have less of a positive view, I tend to find so far. That's just through anecdotal evidence from what I've discussed with people. But that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been talking to people about poo and taking their photos. So yeah, which kind of leads on to this week's topic, not poo. Although I could do a podcast on poo. That might be another day. But yeah, today's topic is, I'm going to let you introduce it as the newest member of the Differently Abled Photography Club.
Hopefully only temporarily in that sense.
Yeah, the Differently Abled
Okay.
Photography Club is it's a group of people who have one way or another got to function around something that provides an issue. For a long time, for me, it was finding bathrooms.
Yeah.
Or not doing projects where there wasn't toilets.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of photographs you've sent me over the last 15 odd years of the inside of toilet doors.
Yeah.
In this kind of almost new topographical approach, just looking at, either nice coffee shop. Well, when I say nice, it's still a toilet door, but it's or something where it's wind and rain and leaves coming through underneath.
Yeah, I even know which image you're talking about there. That was at car boot sale. It was bloody freezing. It was genuinely frozen.
But
I
I
mean,
mean, I suppose in a way, all of that was part of your project. You know, maybe
maybe it
not in
needs to.
terms of a final edit, but it
Yeah.
was still diarising your experiences.
Yeah, I think there's images even back from what first year of uni for us, where there's pictures you took of me and I took from a hospital bed that started this project in its infancy.
Blimey.
I mean, I've still got prints within the darkroom of blood transfusion taking place.
Yes, I remember you printing them.
Yeah,
I mean, this is the thing for those first few years, you were very. I mean, you weren't private about it,
yeah,
but
yeah.
you were very quiet. You didn't really explain the level of your illness to people.
No, I think I underplayed it on the principle that I didn't. I think a lot of people with, and I'm good. Like ulcerative colitis is a disability, regardless of what people. I'm sure somebody will tell me it's not. The same people who tell me I can't use a disabled toilet. But anyway, um, I think people are quite private about something that they feel as a disability. I mean, I was 18, and it was a change to my body. That sounds like I was going through puberty for a second time, but it was something. It was something that I wasn't 100% accepting in myself.
Yeah.
Whereas now I have no shame left. Like in the interview I was doing this last week, we were talking about doctors and nurses looking at you and asking permission every time they come to see you. And I got to the point now where I think every doctor or nurse in the gastroenterology ward of Hull Royal and Castle Hill have seen every part of my anatomy in great detail. And so I have no shame about it, you know. And I think people, if you have a disability and you have got to a point where you are comfortable in your body or comfortable enough to share the reality of living with that disability, you almost have a responsibility, or I feel I have a responsibility, maybe others don't, to inform others, especially those that might be going through something similar, of what is going to happen. Um, the woman I
I think the
interviewed this.
difference. Sorry, I think the difference there is that you have the skill set to be able to inform others.
Mm,
Whereas most people probably don't. Most people don't have the years of study that, well, we've both done in saying a narrative in visual ways to express stuff.
and yeah, I mean, I think there is more aware. I say I did keep it very quiet to begin with. I mean, now that I've started talking about it, I see more and more people sharing their stoma stories and things like that. But I don't know if that's just the algorithm showing me it or whether it's actually being seen more out there. But there's a difference between what I'm doing visually, and there's a lot of really good, and I'm not naysaying or putting any of these people down, social media influencers who do little reviews, stoma workouts, things like that. They're great at what they're doing and they're raising awareness. But that was never going to be my method of raising awareness. You were never going to see me doing like a gym workout for people with stomas because the gym bores me to death. I can proudly say I've not been to the gym since before 2022. Sorry, since 2022. I went before then, but since 2022, the gym has had none of my money, and I'm very pleased about that. So I was never going to be a fitness stoma influencer, but I might be able to tell real people's stories and not just navel gaze and tell mine. Mine was just a gateway into showing other people what I want to do. It's one story of many that are going to be told.
I think it's more than that. Now, I think it's something which has great value, and that is actually by being able to show that personal experience. I mean, you've shared with me iView footage of you changing your bag and so on, which is something I've never had to go through doing that. And I used to work in a SEN school, so special educational needs school, and some of the kids we helped were needing to use stoma bags for whatever reason.
Hmm.
So there have been times where I've helped other people with fitting a stoma, and it's awkward the first few times you do it, but I've never had to see it from a first person point of view. So I think there's a great value in this personal documentation of yourself that you've been doing.
Mm,
And I think it's more than the gateway to, talking to other people. It works for that,
yeah.
certainly.
I think it was therapy.
But yeah,
We talked about in our first episode, I think, about how photography can be therapy. And for me, it was a way of dealing with a quite traumatic experience. I mean, I can look at it now and go, Christ, that was rough. At the time, I was like, I've got to focus on photographing these things because I need to document this and I need to record this. But that was because I wasn't psychologically prepared to deal with them cutting me open and taking like 4.5 foot plus of my intestines out, you know? Or in fact, that wasn't even the hard bit. The recovery was tough. Um,
yeah.
you know,
For me, that was where I saw a real change in you. So to give context to different stages that Toby's been through with this, when you were first diagnosed, I remember getting a phone call from your flatmate because she had a hand in and she'd gone into hospital with you the night before in an ambulance, but she couldn't stay any longer because she had a deadline. She had to go, get back to the college, to the university. But she didn't want you to be on your own. So you asked her to phone me. And I just remember hearing your voice in the background while she was phoning saying, bring a camera.
yeah, yeah. To be fair, I have obviously haven't changed that much because when I came round from the surgery, I said to the nurse attending, "Where's my wife and where are my cameras?" And I said, "Oh, but make sure you tell my wife I asked in that order." Apparently, I've not changed all that much.
I've seen the videos. You said many other things as well.
Oh, I said many other very bizarre things, but it was weird that while I sang along to the radio in recovery and out of my mind, wore a pill pot as a hat, asked them not to hit me with oranges. Where that came from, I do not know. But most importantly, the first thing I asked for was my wife, just to clarify, everybody, wife first, then cameras. Not, did the surgery go all right? Am I okay? What's happened? Wife, cameras. Does
Yeah.
wife have cameras? Where are cameras?
So that first year, apart from, these long drawn out sessions in hospitals with blood transfusions and playing
Yeah.
cards and me focusing cameras for you because you had more tubes coming out the other hand and you couldn't
Yeah.
lift it properly. The only signs that it really showed was the fact that you were ghostly pale
Yeah.
and you got tired very, very quickly. You didn't, no one really knew what was happening to you. You kept it very much to yourself. As time's gone on, certainly over the last 4 or 5 years, you become much more open about it.
Yeah.
And I think some of that is just maturity. Some of it's confidence, as you say. Everyone's seen every part of you.
Yeah.
There's no shame left, whatever.
No.
But I think some of that is just confidence. I mean, the thing that I remember you saying that you were most worried about, not most worried about with the stoma, but it was definitely an element was you are a very vain person.
Yeah.
And that association of the bag and it's being sort of suggestive of the elderly. We don't talk about young people needing to have the stoma surgery,
No.
but
It was a
you know,
big factor. Been a big factor
yeah,
for me. Anyone who knows me or anyone who's seen my Instagram is is aware that I have some outfits. I like to.
you're a peacock.
I'm a peacock. If I was an animal, I'd be a peacock. I like to wear out there outfits. They are a form of armor. It's a distraction from the stoma, but it's been a distraction from illness for a long time. The idea of the stoma did throw me and did make me question about how will I be seen. And again, this is something that's important. It has initially it threw me, and having anything change your body like that will. But in reality, it hasn't changed who I am.
No, and you've got to the point where this last summer, either you or your wife was sending me photos of you sunbathing with the stoma on full show.
Yeah, sat in a hotel on the beach. Yeah,
But I think even a year ago, the possibility of you doing that wouldn't have even come to your mind in terms of confidence.
God no, no. I mean, when I first had it, there was an incident where someone saw it sticking out the bottom of my t-shirt in a supermarket, and she went, there's something sticking out of your bag, sticking out of your shirt. And I was like, oh, it's my stoma bag. And I got in the car and like had a meltdown. Now I'm just like, if somebody challenges me coming out of a disabled toilet, I just lift my shirt up and go, there you go. That's why I'm using it. And it's just completely different. But initially, yeah. And I think that's why work like this is important. And I'm conscious we're talking about my project a lot. It is a lead into what we've planned to discuss this week, which is people who photograph disability or people who are disabled. I mean, I hesitate to use the word disabled. I do have a blue badge. I am a disabled person. I'm not sure how I feel about the term, but it is a, it's a loaded word.
It is a loaded word. I was thinking about this earlier on, knowing that we were going to be talking about this topic.
Mm.
And, we talk about visible disability and invisible disability. And it's almost like there's only two categories. And I think actually, no, that's wrong. It's a scale. If you think visible disability, the stuff that comes to mind is mobility with a wheelchair and, these kinds of scenarios.
Yeah.
But actually, even then, I think that's the association. But actually, there's a sliding scale, because it might be that you are physically fine in terms of a visible disability, but you need a walking aid, so you need to use walking sticks. Now, if you're sitting down in a coffee shop, no one would know.
Yeah.
And so there's these degrees of awareness, I think, as you go through towards you, which is invisible disability, but there's now physical signs of it through the operation that you've needed to have.
Yeah. Well, I think, disability, and it's such a blanket term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Disability. You've got your physical, your what everyone thinks, like you say, wheelchair, walking stick, amputations. Instant. If you say the word disability, that's your first thought, isn't it? I mean, even the logo.
I was about to say, even the logo
is a person in a wheelchair, but that doesn't cover things like learning difficulties, which again, that's another term I don't like and have had bandied around me for my lifetime, as have you. I'm sure. Being dyslexic is a learning disability, and then mental health as well. These things just don't necessarily enter people's minds when you talk about disability. Even things like, we've been discussing for this podcast. Less so because somebody's not driving to work because they've broken their hand selfishly. Honestly. Who am I to talk to on my drive now? That's just, you just don't think of these things. Anyway.
I'm sorry.
Well, you should be. I'm very disappointed in you. You've let yourself down. More importantly, you've let me down. No. We've been discussing these things, and there's a few registered blind photographers. Now,
see, that scares me.
But the idea of going blind terrifies me.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is something that, as a photographer, it's our way of, I would say, a way of seeing. You know what I mean. It's our communication tool. It's our bread and butter. But there are, there's a number of them, and the other thing is we talk about who has the right to photograph disability. There's the famous photograph, which is in the book. Come on, Mr. Beach, use your brain. Blind woman, sign around her neck, says blind. It's in the beginning of
Paul Strand.
Thank you very much. And it's in the essay book.
Ongoing Moment by Jeff Dyer.
There we go. I knew you'd remember.
I think it's actually the first photo in the essay.
I could check because the book's somewhere on my book. Actually, no, it isn't. I've lent it to a student. Never mind. Yeah. Now, that image is one of the first images of disability that I think of. And it's loaded in so many ways. First of all, the person photographing is fully sighted, has no disability in that respect. The person in the photograph has no way of knowing how they are being represented. And so it asks the ethical question, doesn't it? Is it right to photograph disability if you're not disabled? Or, is that too harsh a rule? I think if you're going to photograph anything, you need to know it. You need to know it inside out. You need to get to know your subjects. I mean, it's similar to my issue with middle-class photographers photographing working-class people. It can become voyeuristic. I don't think it necessarily has to be, but I think that there's a fine line to tread.
Yeah, I think intention is very important there.
Yeah.
You know, to what purpose are you photographing that person? And I mean, I've said before my issues with certain words in the vernacular, the idea of taking and shooting and capturing a photograph,
Yeah.
it ties in with that. And in that Paul Strand example, if I remember reading somewhere, he's another lens glued onto the side of the camera and he was holding the camera sideways.
Mm.
So people would think he was photographing in one direction when he was actually looking
Doing the other.
to the side.
Yeah.
If he's doing that again to photograph this woman who's blind, one, she's got no way to know she's being photographed because of her disability, but also the people around her can't say, by the way, someone's photographing you.
Yeah.
So
There's
she's
no
completely left out of any form of communication
of
about
the whole
how
process.
she's being recorded. And that is where I think the terminology like shoot and
Mm.
take is accurate
Well,
because
it's
that's what's happening.
yeah. I mean, we talk about poverty porn all the time, don't we? You know, those images of homeless people looking sad and the idea of sort of that. There's almost with disability, there's the idea of like, is it inspirational porn essentially? You know, oh look at them, look at the person striving against adversity, and that can become, if the intention isn't right, that's how that work can be seen, or that's how work can be interpreted incorrectly.
Yeah.
I think, and I think that's something to be aware of.
And I mean, it goes off on a bit of a tangent, but the migrant mother is a great example of that.
Yeah,
You know,
totally. Yeah.
she was outraged about how her image became this very poetic poster
Mm.
of a horrific time in America. And at one point, I think the family tried to sue the estate, didn't they?
They did try, and I think they might have actually been settled out of court. We'd have to check that, but yeah, they did. I do believe they tried to sue. But yeah, I think there's ethical issues really around it, isn't there? You know, I think as we've said in all good photography, there needs to be a collaboration. I think it's essential. Um, I think in terms when you are looking at something like documenting disability, I'm not talking about photographers with disabilities. I'm talking about people documenting a disability. It's got to be collaborative. Everyone has to be comfortable at every stage because
I think that's what made Diane Arbus so successful was that she did spend the time getting
yeah,
to know the people that she was photographing. It weren't just fleeting moments of the fringe of society and then moving on. She really got to know the person.
well, I mean, she's one of my sort of photographic heroes, not necessarily in style, although I do love her work, but she was someone who had many demons of her own, and I think that's why she did so well with people on the fringes of society. I mean, the terminology that is used to describe people in her photographs is now very dated.
Oh, absolutely.
But
It's cruel, actually.
yeah, but she, like you say, got to know her subject. And I think she was one of the, I'm going to put myself out on a limb here and say, one of the early photographers to sort of do that to that degree, to embed herself in a fringe part of society. Certainly of the big names at that time, there wasn't a lot of people doing it. And I think maybe some of that is down to her own experiences, and maybe some of that was down to the fact that she was a woman moving into, at the time, a male-dominated sphere.
Yeah, I mean, even within her own household, with her husband being a fashion photographer.
Yeah. Well, she was essentially his assistant for a long time, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And I think photographers getting to know their subjects is really important if you're going to photograph anybody, regardless of disability or not. But, you know, I think even more important when you take into somebody's I'm going to say vulnerability, you know, somebody's vulnerability around self-representation or the control of themselves being represented, you know? I don't like people to think there's that stoma guy, Toby. I like people to think there's Toby. The disability doesn't or shouldn't be who the person is, you know? That's my disabled friend is a terrible phrase.
Oh, it's awful. That's
Do
cruel.
you,
Yeah.
but it's
Has
but
anyone
we
actually ever said that to you?
yes, that has been used.
Really?
Yeah, this is Toby, he's my disabled friend. And I'm like, sorry, do you have a collection of different types of friend? There was a discussion had. But I wasn't rude, I was just corrected the terminology.
Yeah.
Because that's not who I am. I mean, it is who I am, but it's not my identity. And I think that's, again, when you know, if you're a photographer, I mean, my identity is Toby the photographer. Anything else is additional.
Yeah. I mean, with me, with this, okay. So for the next few weeks, my arm's out of use. So in the short term, my life has become disabled. I would not describe myself as disabled because it's not a long term issue I'm facing. But it does give me, I think, and if I'm wrong, I do apologize, but I think it gives me an awareness of what other people are having to deal with for far longer than me. I mean, this has given me for a couple of months or so, probably. Whereas other people have to deal with this forever. Through um, you know, amputation perhaps of a limb. I get to experience the restrictions that other people face, and I have to find other ways of doing things. And photographically, I've not found that yet. I mean, today was the first day in a week that I have picked up a camera.
Well, I mean, it allows you to have empathy, doesn't it? For people
Yeah.
who, and I think that's important. I mean, like you say, you're not, before we get cancelled, you're not saying you're disabled. What you're saying is you're having a taste of that life through no fault. Well, I say no fault of your own, but some fault of your own. You're experiencing having to adapt. I mean, we've got to talk about the fact that there are disabled photographers who find ways to make work. But like everything, they have to pay more for kit, I'm assuming, or find equipment that specifically works around their specific needs.
Yeah, or work with an assistant who can support them in those ways.
Yeah,
So, the stuff that jumped to my mind, one of them is actually fictitious, is one of my favourite films, Rear Window by Alfred Hitchcock. So it's 1954, James Stewart and Grace Kelly.
brilliant film.
If you've not watched it, yes, it's a bit dated in terms of style, but it is just truly an amazing film. And James Stewart's character, LB Jeffries, is in a wheelchair after stepping out onto a racetrack to photograph a car crash right in front of him, and he gets hit. And so on. We don't see any of this. We just see him for the whole film in a wheelchair, leg in the cast. And the way he shows his frustrations with that on camera, like hitting it, trying to scratch down inside it with a ruler and all sorts of things, I fully sympathise with. And because I've been essentially trying to do the same thing, was having itches I can't reach and everything else. And yeah, I can see how frustrating it is and how you need to be able to adapt. Now, for the character, that's his leg, not his arm, and he's able to work with what he can see from his window, hence the title, Rear Window. And then the other one that came to mind, which is a true story, is my hero, Eugene Smith, who, after taking a beating in Japan, his final project, Minamata, was left in a situation where he had an arm in a sling, he was partially blind,
Yeah.
he had chronic headaches for the rest of his life.
Mm.
And to be able to do some of his greatest photographs in that project, it was his wife, Eileen, who did all the technical element for him because he just simply couldn't do it himself. And it was that communication and collaboration, and I haven't found that yet for me.
No, well, yeah, I mean, I think you've got to find your own method of working, haven't you? And how you want to explore creativity through one-handed photography. I mean, I had, do you know what, until you mentioned it, I hadn't even thought about Rear Window. You need to get a camera set up on a tripod and photograph out of your back bedroom window or something.
My back bedroom looks onto a primary school, and I
Maybe not.
can't put a camera on a tripod one-handed. So,
Yeah,
two reasons why not there.
yeah. The first one's definitely the big one. You do not want to point a camera to primary school.
Absolutely not.
Please, listeners, don't take that as advice. See, we're thinking about photographers with disability. There's a photographer called Dexter McLean who's got cerebral palsy. I don't know if you've seen the work.
No, I don't know him.
All right, so Dexter McLean, worth a look. Shout out. We'll maybe stick a link to them in the show notes, or I'll leave that to the technical producer, as in you.
Yeah, just give me the name afterwards, and I'll make sure it's in there.
All right, will do. Okay, so Dexter McLean has cerebral palsy, but uses photography to challenge the idea of exclusion and stereotype. Okay. And talks a lot about visibility in UK photography, and who gets to hold the camera. There's a project, I think it's called Tower Avenue. Power of Tower
I'm on his
Avenue.
website now.
There we go.
Tower Avenue, yep.
Yeah, Power of Tower Avenue, I think it's called. Community, culture, identity, and disabled pride, or disability pride. Now, I think that kind of, it's an interesting one, trying to challenge that exclusion of people with disabilities in the eyes of stereotype of a disabled person, which is what we were talking about a little bit earlier on. I mean, there are other photographers who, object to the term disabled photographer completely, or reject the idea of disability. I quite like the fact that he doesn't reject it, he embraces it, but also challenges the stereotypes. So I think that's quite a nice series of work to look at when we're talking about photographers who have different abilities.
I'm looking at his website now, actually.
Yeah.
He's done a series called Aspire Gym, and this is looking at the disabled sports community. So different sports, different types of athletes. And it's just nice, simple portraits. And there's nothing fancy about them. But you get a sense of the strength and courage of these people through the way they're sitting for the portraits. And in some cases, a bit of fragility through the way they're looking as well. They're sort of looking over the shoulder.
But I think it's important that when you look at that work, it is the same way that any other sports person is documented in almost the same way. Because it challenges that stereotype. It almost, to me, shows the stereotype of a sports person more than it does about a disabled person, which I like about it because it's inclusive and breaks that exclusion. So yeah, I think his work is something to definitely look at and explore if you were looking around that thing. There's the flip side of the coin, which is able-bodied or non-disabled, not differently abled. That's what I like to call me. But yeah, so traditional able-bodied photographers documenting people with learning difficulties or disabilities. Sean Davies, for example, or Sean Davy, yeah. Looking for Alice. I don't know if her daughter has Down syndrome.
Yeah, you told me about that one earlier. I don't know that work. I need to have a look at it.
It's very good. She does a lot about Alice and also Martha, I think, is her adopted or stepdaughter. And she documented her sort of teenage years as well and her impact of living with Alice. Now, Sean is obviously in the position of being a mother and therefore has the best interest of her children at heart. And the work is done with love. But it is an able-bodied person documenting people with disability or her daughter with disability and a child at that, which brings up some strong questions. Now, the images are very collaborative, which I think is really, really important, especially when you're working with a child. Especially when you think about work with children that exists elsewhere, where challenges have been brought about the appropriateness of a mother photographing children.
Sally Mann.
Yeah. See, Sally Mann does some amazing and beautiful portraits. It's how people look at them that can change things.
Yeah, I remember seeing at the National Portrait Gallery, the Photographers Gallery, sorry, years ago. I think it was just before they closed for a big refit. a exhibition of Sally Mann's work, and it was just one of the most beautiful exhibitions I've ever been to.
I think Simon makes beautiful images. They're very, very emotive. It's more about how people interpret images, and that's ultimately photography all over, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, about a year ago, must have been, I contacted a local wheelchair rugby squad
But yeah, brilliant.
that I found about, and I contacted them about asking if I could go and make portraits with them. And I was thinking large formats, set the camera a little bit lower than eye level to sort of, lift them up and show their strength.
Yeah.
And they never got back to me, which is fair enough. And now, I mean, I know I've only had a cast for a week and so on. I kind of glad they didn't get back to me. I still want to do the portraits.
Yeah.
I can still see it being, really nice work. But it would have been, if I did it then, it would have been very, very superficial because I couldn't have any
Well, you could.
confident understanding of the day-to-day frustrations they go through with just going through a crowd in a wheelchair. I can't imagine that. But I've been wary of going through a crowded corridor at work in case people bump into me as well. So it's just these little things that I would have taken for granted 8 or 9 days ago. Now already I'm starting to see differently. So I might
Yeah.
contact them again when all of this is over and
Yeah. I think
see.
previously you can sympathise. So you can sympathise with people who are having to live differently or have to adapt, you know. But then there's a difference between sympathising and empathising. And I think you can sympathise from a position of never having really experienced it. But when you've experienced some sort of change, disability, whatever, then you can actually empathize. You can put yourself more accurately in that position and feel and understand what they're going through. I mean, as someone who's had IBD for years, one of my bugbears is when people go, "Oh yeah, I get upset stomach sometimes. It's really bad." Yeah, okay, because that's the same. So do you know what I mean? Like that's sympathy, and great. Thank you very much for trying to understand what I'm going through. But they are not. They're not the same experience. Um, I fundamentally changed the way I live before I had the stoma. I probably got more freedom now, but I fundamentally lived a very planned existence because of it, because of UC.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we went years without seeing each other because trying to find ways of meeting up when you always had to sort of service stops along the road to wherever you're going.
There,
It was
there,
just a logistical nightmare for you to be able to organize any part of your life.
yeah, everywhere I went before we planned anything, I would Google Maps where all the service stations, toilets, etc. were because I had to know. I couldn't do a simple thing like going into town without planning it. To the point where it drove my wife mad that I still plan too much. I'll be like, so when we do this, we're going to go here, there'll be this place, that place, that place. I don't need it now, but I can't undo it. You're being dogged there.
Yeah, it's nearly school pickup time here, and people are starting to sort of wander past the house.
I'd just like to point out my pet's being very well behaved today. She's fallen asleep.
There will be a photo on.
Yes.
Should we use that as a photo for this episode?
I think we should. I think we should.
Let's do that. Let's put Noodle up as a photo for the episode.
Yeah, she's been good for once. Normally, when I'm filming or podcasting, she decides to make a right racket. If it's not her, it's the cat walking into frame. But some of my early "This Bag Saved My Life" project has either a duck quacking or a cat wandering through the frame. Completely unusable footage. Thank you, pets. But yeah, anyway, back to our more serious content. We've talked about some photography, talked about photographer's gaze. We talk about male gaze, don't we? There's the male gaze within the media. What about the able-bodied and the disabled gaze? Do we think it changes? Do you think having a disability will change the way you look at other people? I mean,
I think so, and I think in general there's a wider social awareness happening anyway.
hmm,
And I'm just thinking in terms of not so much in terms of mental disability, but when we talk about mental health, there
yeah,
has been a real drive to be more open about talking in the topic, being more aware of the male element to mental health, which has
yeah,
had a real stigma for a very, very long time.
almost
And I
forever.
think awareness of disability is going through a similar process as well, either through people such as yourself and the
Mm,
work you're doing and, showing that, or through the championing of people who have disabilities. I found far more coverage over the last 2 or 3 Olympics of the Paralympic Games
yeah,
than there'd ever been before. I mean, it's still not up to the same level and equal level of viewing that you can do for the able-bodied Olympics,
yeah.
but it's a definite improvement, and I I actually prefer it. I think it's far more impressive to see these athletic feats in wheelchair tennis.
Mm,
And hitting a ball across a tennis court in the first place is quite hard
yeah.
work, and then doing it from a sitting position while rushing backwards and forwards in that sitting position, mental.
In talking about wheelchair experience, I actually have to throw in there a sort of an anecdotal experience post-surgery. I was in a wheelchair for a little while because I mean, I was very ill, starved and weak and could barely make it anywhere. So anyway, to get me around quickly was in a wheelchair, which saved everyone having to wait while I sat down every 10 minutes. The way that people spoke to me while I was in a wheelchair was very different to the way people speak to me when not. And I think that's something we should just quickly touch on. I mean, you kind
That's
of touched on it.
interesting.
Yeah. So first of all, everyone spoke to the person pushing the wheelchair. I got a lot of, "Is he okay? Does he need a drink?" And I'm like, My issue is not that I don't understand what's going on around me. I'm just in a wheelchair at the moment." I'm not going to name or shame anyone, but there was an incident where we were in town and there were some people with, you'll have seen them around all sorts of places where they've got some birds of prey. And the very well-meaning person there asked the person pushing the wheelchair, is he allowed to hold one of the birds? And I have to admit to having to bite my tongue. Is he allowed? Yeah, yes, that the 37-year-old man is allowed to make decisions for himself. You don't need to ask the person pushing the chair. And I think there's this misconception sometimes that disability in terms of a physical disability or an invisible disability or even a learning disability, that the cognitive decision making is not as good as
Yeah.
someone who is able-bodied, which is just not true.
Your cognition's not in your spine.
No, exactly, yeah. I mean, there's a photographer, hang on, I know this. I'm having to check my show notes. There is a person with an MFA who is Down syndrome, like, that's a master's level.
Yes.
I didn't know. Come on, brain. I'm looking for my show notes. Sorry, guys. Rachel Handlin. There we go. American photographer and artist. There we are. First person, we think, with Down syndrome to earn an MFA, which shows you that it isn't about a disability or ability. It's about what you've got going on in your head, and there's this kind of disconnect, I think, in society of seeing disabled people or people with different abilities as not necessarily as able as others. I mean, that's something that photography is addressing and continues to sort of have to focus on, because I think good photography will show that disability is a human experience. It's something that you live. It isn't a visual trope to be exploited. Like that Paul Strand image, to me, is an exploitation of a visual trope. It's a way of making a strong image. It is more about the strong image than it is about the representation of the person in that image.
I think what you're saying about how people responded to you when they saw you in a wheelchair,
Mm.
two things come to mind. One of them is, was it Little Britain?
Quite possibly, yeah.
It
Andy in
was,
the wheelchair.
yeah, it was something along the lines where there was, or if it wasn't that, maybe it was a fast show going back a little bit earlier. But it was that kind of comedy show, and it was, someone's in a wheelchair, so the other person just automatically starts sort of, "Oh, are you okay? Can you do?" And it was just this very, I mean, it's BBC comedy, so it's kind of in your face anyway, but it was very dramatically shifting the power and questioning that.
Which is kind of what needs to be addressed in photography.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to do projects around people's disabilities, you need to understand them, you need to work with them, and you need to not be going in with preconceptions of what disabilities are or what that disability means. Because you'll have a preconception. It's hard not to, you know. But you've got to treat each individual as a totally different individual, not as people with this disability will be like this.
So over the year, I've had students who are essentially completely deaf,
Mm.
and some have had implants, so the cochlear implants, and then I wear a like a hearing link microphone, and we had great fun once testing the range of it across a very large room to see if he could hear me. But there's always just the worry that you go to talk to another teacher,
Yeah.
and
Your mic's
I
up.
know it happened to other people, never happened to me,
Yeah.
but someone had forgotten that they were wearing it and it wasn't muted, and the student hears things that maybe they weren't meant to hear.
Yeah. I wish you would be going to the toilet wearing it.
It's been known to happen,
Yeah.
and I feel for the students, they probably need therapy after
Yeah.
listening to that.
Yeah. What's
But
happening?
I know, but we also worked with a great group of BSL
Mm.
translators.
Yeah.
So using sign language to communicate. And one of the things that so often happens is that rather than talking to the individual who has hearing loss, either partial or full, people talk to the signer and wait for the signer to translate it into sign language for that person. So no, they will do it alongside you,
Yeah.
and the people who need the help of the signer, they can take in what you're doing and what you're saying and lip read you,
Yeah.
and be seeing that almost like subtitles in the
Yeah.
corner of their vision. And it's considered hugely disrespectful, even in a naive way, to do that, to talk to the signer and wait for them to translate. Talk to the person you're communicating to, and if someone's standing behind you and signing over your shoulder, so
Yeah.
be it.
Yeah. I think that's, and I think that's the kind of, that's the importance of it. It's almost etiquette, isn't it?
Mm, yeah.
But it boils down to, more simply, people with disabilities want to be treated exactly the same as everyone else on the whole. Now, I don't speak as the authority on all disabilities. I'm sure some people with disabilities would like to be treated differently for whatever reason that's right for them. But I think the majority of people I have interacted with just want to be treated the same as everyone else. If I'm being an idiot or I'm being rude to you, tell me, because I would rather you treated me the same than when I won't say anything because he's disabled. They do the whisper. It's that kind of, and reality is that you have to be completely open and honest with people. And I think that in terms of disability means treating everyone the same. And is that ultimately what we're saying in photography? If you're going to photograph anyone, disability or not, treat them with respect, compassion, be aware of them as an individual, be aware of their story, be aware of what they're telling you, and work in collaboration. And don't do things like shoot pictures, take images. You make photographs, you make these, you work together, you compose them together, you construct images, you don't take them. And I think this is where your idea around the vernacular of photography is really important, because people who have disabilities have quite often had lots of people treat them differently, take things from them. They've had something taken from them, usually in one way or another, be it a sense, be it an ability to do something, or a change in the way they live. So to then,
Why take any more?
yeah, why exploit them visually for a visual trope, for a powerful image, if that image isn't going to serve them and others like them? That's the crux of it, isn't it? The image has to do something good, not just be added to your portfolio as a way of going, look at my beautiful photographs, look at how amazing I am. Because ultimately the photographer doesn't matter, the message matters.
It's all about intention.
Yeah, comes back to, like you say, the intention is you should tell the story, not self-aggrandize. You don't want to be, oh, look, don't they make beautiful pictures? Aren't they brilliant people because they're photographing this group of people? Aren't they thinking kindly about, no, don't care about the photographer as long as they're doing a good job. Care about the story. I think that's kind of the crux of our discussion.
It is. It's a nice way to sort of round things off. But I will ask you this.
Go on then.
To round this off, we've spoken a lot about other people's work. We will put those links in here as well. Where can we see your work in progress? Where's the best place to see what it is you're doing?
So my current work in progress best place is Instagram, which is Tobias Beach Wild. Instagram, you'll be able to find me. I'm the only one. And I'm sure that our executive producer, editor, and all-round dogs buddy can probably put a link in the show notes to that. You could also check out my website, although it's far less often maintained because websites are going the way of the dodo. And that's Tobias Beach Wild Photography. And the projects you want to look at, I mean, look at them all, but specifically the Anatomy of Survival is the self-focused project, if that makes sense. So the stuff that's just talking about me is called the Anatomy of Survival.
Where'd you get that title?
That was kind of a discussion between me and my absolute brilliant, wonderful other half. He always comes up with great titles, as we know, because it was the fact that a lot of the images are quite anatomical. So sensor warning, you do see my insides. And she's like, these are anatomical. And I was like, yeah, but it's what kept me going. And, all this sort of is how I survived. And she's like, well, that's what you should call it. And so that's where sort of the Anatomy of Survival came from.
Good title. I like it.
I mean, to be fair, I'm not entirely convinced that This Bag Saved My Life might not just be a continuation of Anatomy of Survival, and that the projects will become one very big project.
I think it's different. I think because the Anatomy of Survival is very diaristic, I think there is that distinction. I think you're right. I think This Bag Saved My Life is more of a working title.
Yeah.
It
It's
doesn't.
not ready.
No, I'm not going to say it sounds cheesy.
It does a little bit.
It does a little bit. It's not there yet.
It's not there yet.
Someone will say something.
Yeah, they always do. These things come out of, someone will, in one of the interviews, I'm sure someone will say a phrase or a term that will go, my brain will go, that's it. And it's like anything. Once it sticks, it sticks. Like I say, This Bag Saved My Life is a working title so that I can pitch it to people. And hopefully some charities and some funding. Side note, I got banned from a Facebook group for trying to share it this week. Trying to get people to get involved with the project. And I was given a 24-hour ban for asking for people to get involved. So
How dare you?
I know. I mean, how dare I try and raise awareness on a group that's about raising awareness? Anyway, I was put in Facebook jail for the first time ever, which is impressive considering how controversial and gobby I am. And I pouted about it for, well, we're now on to like a week and a half. But yeah, if you are listening to this and you're someone with a stoma, ileostomy, colostomy, or I don't know the last one, the one that does urine instead of feces, feel free to get in contact through my social media. I am looking at travelling up and down the country. And in fact, there's someone in Ireland as well. So I'll be leaving the country technically, crossing the border to document someone there as well. So it's an ongoing project. It will be over the next couple of years. So if you get in touch, I will come and photograph you. It just might not be tomorrow.
Good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much. And on that note, I think we've wrapped it up this week.
I think we have. So thank you so much for staying with us on this. We've had a couple of quite serious topics in a row here now. We have hopeful plans for the next couple of episodes with some interesting stuff. It's maybe not quite so heavy. Yeah. As we get closer to Christmas, we will try and make it a bit more lighthearted as well. Thank you very much. Yeah, hopefully we've got a couple of people lined up. Just need to make sure that we can make it work in terms of technology and timing. So we're not going to say any names yet, but there we go. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.